Hello music makers, welcome back. I'm often asked to do videos on layering sounds, but there's one sound that gets brought up a lot more than the rest. One instrument in particular which always seems to cause a lot of problems and confusion: the piano. It doesn't seem to matter whether that piano is coming out of a synth, a sampler, or even if it's a recording of the real thing. Trying to layer any two or more pianos usually does not go as expected, and not in the good way, especially in terms of the traits we're looking for in dance music. So in this video, I'll explain why that happens and the 4 main workarounds. Let's go. Okay, so we're all on the same page. Let me show you the problem I'm talking about. Here's a typical piano production journey. At some point, you'll be trying to get the same piano sound as one of your favorite tracks. But the problem is pianos are really complex instruments. And eventually you learn that no amount of EQ or multiband compression or any processing can make one piano sound like another. Have a listen to just these examples I've got here. I've tried to go in rough order of artificial to realistic, starting with the classic Korg M1, Meat Beats Micro Piano. Here's Ableton's built-in one. Here's a stock piano from Contact 5. And lastly, Pianotech. Yes, they all sound like pianos, but hopefully you can hear listening back to back, they sound completely different. So the only way to match a piano sound is to have access to literally the same piano, usually by finding out what synth or preset was used on what rompler or sampler. And as wonderful as the age of the internet is, that information isn't always out there. However, upon auditioning all the pianos you do have, you might start to hear different aspects in each piano which could each contribute towards a piano sound closer to what you're after, like taking the attack from one piano but using the warm tail from another. So naturally you start to combine some, and then this happens. It's gone all swooshy, mushy, a bit like you've added a phaser or a chorus effect. Now that's not a bad thing in itself, but it's a very different sound. I'm not sure how you feel, but I hear chorusy sounds like that as a lot softer, less punchy, less direct, which for a typical piano dance riff is what we really need. My particular affliction is whenever I hear a chorus piano, I instantly think of one of two things. Either old school ragtime or honky-tonk piano, or this. Cheesy 80s ballads, not exactly the same vibe we're after, right? Now, typically when you combine sounds and get this effect, it means that the two sounds are out of tune with each other. Let me demonstrate with a simpler sound, just a saw wave on this synth. If I add another one which is slightly off pitch, you'll hear that chorus effect. But as I bring that back in tune with the first one, you'll hear that chorus effect go away. Until they actually just become one sound. So those with this knowledge might instinctively think that when combining two pianos, if you hear that chorus sound, it just means that they are out of tune with each other. And in one sense, that would be correct. Unfortunately though, as we said earlier, pianos are really complex instruments. And I guarantee you could be playing around with that tuning dial all day and you will never actually get them in tune. So, why is that? Well, again, it's complex. I'll give you the short version. Then we can get on with looking at our options. What's going on is pianos are not tuned like any other instrument. They actually use a system called stretch tuning. We could be here all day discussing the science, so I'll link a couple of videos in the description. But in summary, due to the way pianos are built, each one has to be tuned based on its size, because size determines the string lengths and the thicknesses. And if those change, so does the harmonic structure of the sound, which is why it still doesn't work with samples, because those harmonics are recorded in the samples. Anyway, all we need to know is that we will never get two pianos layered in tune. So in that case, what are our options? we can't truly layer pianos, let's talk about what we can do. We have 4 options. First off, before we talk about any kind of complicated processing, the first option I'm going to suggest is that you actually don't layer at all. Just take one of your pianos and make it a lot stronger. Now, my mantra on this channel has always been, pick a good sound in the first place and you won't have to do much to it. Well, that's all well and good if you've got the ear training, of course, and some sounds are a lot easier to work with than others. With piano, however, the fact that it is a really complex sound means it does respond well to small processing changes. The first thing we must do before any processing, though, is letting go of the reference track. Now, knowing that we can't make one piano sound like another, we can let go of that notion, and we're just going to make the best of what we already have. Who knows, in the process we might end up making a new piano sound everyone else wants to copy. Here's a few quick tips to be listening out for. If you've got a piano on the more realistic side, like this stock grand piano inside of Contact we've got here, here's how I would approach it. So real pianos tend to be a lot duller than the typical fake piano used in dance riffs. Of course, that's fine for softer sections like breaks, but for faster dance riffs, we need something a little more energetic. So first, to get that brightness, take an EQ, any EQ will do. Bring out some of that top end. To accentuate that in a more natural way, you could try dipping the mids a little too. If you still can't get it bright enough without making it harsh, try a high-frequency exciter plugin. That might get you the rest of the way there. Real pianos also tend to lack the dynamics of fake pianos, so to emulate that, we can use a transient designer to add some attack at the beginning. Then just sprinkle in a little bit of delay and reverb to taste, and we're done. Now listen to the difference. Let me show you my approach for more digital or fake style piano. Here's a Korg M1 in its raw form. First of all, this sample is mono, so I'm going to add a little bit of width for the headphone users. Preferably choose a mono safe option. I've done a whole video about that if you want to know more, link in the description. Then in terms of dynamics, this piano has the opposite problem. It's very spiky at the front, but it falls off very fast. So to even that out, we can either do the opposite of what I did earlier, take a transient plugin and reduce the attack and increase the sustain, or we can use a compressor. Yes, shock horror, I'm using compression on this channel. I actually quite like OTT for this purpose, but as always, compression is really easy to overdo, so just a little goes a long way. And remember, with all processing, never be fooled by loudness increases. Always try to compensate. As for EQ, again, we might have the opposite problem of the real piano. Not enough in the mids and possibly too harsh at the top. As always though, use your ears. That sounds good to me here. Then again, a little bit of delay, reverb. Let's have a listen to before and after. Good stuff. Speaking of making one piano strong, here's Ableton's built-in grand piano. Now listen to what happens when we check in mono. Obviously, we lose a bit of level, that's normal, but the tone has changed. It actually gets duller. Listen again. If this is a track where the piano is supposed to be the strongest element, that's a big problem. If we check on Voxengo's Corella meter, we can see the problem. Our high frequencies are cancelling out. So, if you're intending your track to be played back in lots of different environments, make sure you check this. As for a solution, I'm just going to add an EQ shelf, roughly at that same frequency, and make sure it's applying only to the mid channel. Now when we check in mono, much better. And while we're here, looking at that Corella meter, it looks like the low frequencies could actually be a bit more stereo. So let's do the opposite. Let's grab a low shelf, make sure it's adjusting the side channel only, and give that a little nudge. Okay, just in case none of that worked, or you're simply not convinced because you clicked on a video about layering pianos, let's look at some actual layering options. We can't actually overlay pianos directly, but we can still technically layer things without them overlapping. And we can do that in 3 ways: the frequency domain, the time domain, and the width domain. Let's look at the easiest one first, width. I showed earlier with the M1 how you could add artificial width to it, but how about some natural width? This Pianotech instrument I've got here isn't sampled, it's actually realistically modelled, microphones and all. And as such, like a real mic'd up piano, its stereo image is extremely wide. So one type of layer we can do is I can take the mono M1, then we can layer in the real piano, but only its stereo information. So technically, they don't overlap. So we still get a little bit of that chorusing effect, but not as much. And of course, if it's played back in just mono environments, like some clubs, we'll just get the M1. Okay, let's look at the next option, splitting by frequencies. Let's take those same 2 pianos again. Instead, I'm going to take the best bit of the M1, which is that bright top end. I'm going to cut that off with a high-pass filter, ideally a linear phase one. Then we're going to take the best bits of the real piano, which is its warmth and sustain, by copying this over, and we're going to flip it into a low-pass filter. There we go, best of both, layered by frequency separation. Now, for those paying attention to the last segment, yes, this means I would have a mono top end and a stereo bottom end with these particular pianos in this example. So you will have to play with appropriate width adjustments. In fact, you're already hearing them. Okay, the last option, and the hardest to get to work, is to split in the time domain. So this micro piano by Meat Beats I've got here is supposed to be a commonly sampled dance piano that was passed around as an Akai sample back in the day. But just like those samples, which were squeezed into tiny amounts of memory, the tail of it doesn't sound great. The bright bit, which is supposed to be part of the attack, is also looped into the sustain. So how about we just take the first bit of this piano, use it as the bright attack, and then after that bring in a piano with a better sounding sustain. Now, there's all manner of ways you can do this. The easiest being, if you're playing back a piano from a sampler, it should have an ADSR envelope: attack, decay, sustain, release. Unfortunately, in my case, this micro piano by Meatbeats, being a free option, doesn't have that. So I've had to improvise by attaching a MIDI envelope to a volume knob. There we go, that's the only bit we need. Then I can take another piano, shave off the front end, the attack, then we should be able to recombine them. There we go. Now, I can still hear some chorusing with that. Ideally, I'd need to play with those decay and attack curves. Or you could even get super forensic and do this in the audio domain, but you get the idea. Okie dokie. Well, I hope you learned something. If you did, you know what to do. Press one of those buttons to help me out, or if you're feeling extra generous, there's a link in the description to buy me a coffee. Any questions you've got, I'll be right down there in the comments. And until next video, bye-bye.